Good morning. If you could get your coffee and have a seat, we're going to start here in a couple minutes. Just kidding, we're going to start now, so let's sit down. If you have your cell phone, come on, everybody in this room has your cell phone. You can download our app, check in, and then the presenters that are presenting today, you can give them some feedback. If you have never been to 1 Million Cups, raise your hand. Awesome, so we've got some newbies. So if you don't know how 1 Million Cups works, we have two presenters. The first one will start for 6 minutes, and then we have our expert panelists. They will ask some questions, and then you get to ask questions. And then we have a second presenter, same thing. So I'm gonna have the expert panelists introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Donetta Watson. I am the president and chapter director for the Black CEO Movement, which is a global movement in America, South Africa, London, England, Nigeria, and Canada, and soon to be Bahamas and a country called Antigua. We are unapologetically moving Black businesses from the inner core to stable businesses that can provide opportunities in their local community. Businesses that will be strengthened to provide resources that will assist in the problems that we are concerned about in our inner core. So thank you very much, and I'm excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Xander Winkle. I'm with the Innovation Center in Independence. Who here is not familiar with the Innovation Center? Perfect. We're a traditional incubator. We work with a lot of food companies. We work with some tech companies. We provide them space, and then we also help them out with those early stage processes. So a lot of folks that come to us, I've got this product that I make, I've got this service that I'm really good at. How do I turn that into a business that's ideally profitable?
Thanks so much. And then if you're wondering who all of these random people on the stage are, we are the organizers for 1 Million Cups. We've got Billy in the back. He's raising his hand right now. And then we've got John, Kyle, Tyler, Nicole, Caitlin, and Courtney. I didn't forget anyone's name. That was great. All right, and without further ado, we're going to have Austin come up. He's with Vintage Audio. That's correct, right? We're the right person? Okay. So give him a hand.
I was told I would be second, but this works. All right, speaking of audio, that seems to be working. All right, yeah, I'm Austin Keel with Vintage Audio Consulting. So obviously I'm going to talk to you about audio, but first I'm going to talk to you about a broader trend in technology and society, which is the acceptance of mediocrity. And to illustrate that, I'm going to use air travel. So the problem that we face in almost every arena of technology, and especially consumer technology, is potential versus realized quality. The technology that exists today has made the potential quality of almost every experience higher than ever before. For instance, this was about the pinnacle of air travel in the 1970s, and it's nice, but it's not as nice as the pinnacle of air travel today. But do you know anybody that travels like that? No. This is how we travel. And increasingly, if the airlines have their way, this is how we will travel. So technology has made it easy to have a really crappy experience, but to have it reliably. You know that you can fly on a cut rate and deeply uncomfortable airline, but because of aviation safety technology, you'll arrive alive. Consumers, therefore, have a nasty habit of choosing the cheapest option, no matter how uncomfortable it is, as long as they know it will work. And this trend is incredibly difficult to reverse because everyone faces financial pressures, and it's virtually impossible to remake an industry like, say, the airlines. There are too many infrastructural challenges, and it's extremely costly. However, in home audio, we can go back to that higher quality experience that people used to have. Will it be as high quality as the absolute pinnacle of the audio experience that you can have today if you buy $20,000 worth of audiophile equipment? No. But it's far higher than the way most people enjoy their music, which is through something like this: a laptop speaker made in China for 20 cents, or a pair of headphones, which cost a lot more than 20 cents, but contain about a 10-cent driver and a little bit of copper wire. And they're powered by that, a little tiny audio chip that provides a minimal amount of headphone amplification. And if you connect that to, say, desktop speakers that are powered, you're still ultimately working with an incredibly weak, incredibly designed to the lowest bidder source for your audio. It doesn't matter how good your audio files are. It doesn't matter even if you have a turntable somehow hooked up to your computer. You're still filtering it through a horrible little choke point. Versus 40 years ago, the average consumer audio experience involved speakers that looked like that. They were large, they were freestanding, they were well built, usually in Japan, the United States, or Europe, and they were built by hand by people that really cared. And they were connected to amplifiers that looked like this. Not only were they incredibly well designed visually, they were extremely well made, and they used components that will last or can be fixed literally forever, because they use standard size capacitors and power sources that are widely available on the commercial market. So whenever you say high quality audio, people assume you're talking about something that is extremely expensive and virtually inaccessible. And with modern audiophile grade equipment, they're right. But with vintage audio, a two-source system, such as a digital analog converter connected to a computer that can play iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, etc., and a turntable, and this includes speakers, the amplifier, everything, can be had for as little as $800, and a single-source system, such as just a DAC for listening at your desk, costs only $400. And that's because there's an enormous backlog of vintage equipment that was sort of consumer or prosumer grade that is still relatively accessible. The extremely high-end stuff has been bought up by collectors, but the middle-of-the-road stuff that sounds far better than probably anything you've experienced unless you work in the music or audiophile industry is widely available. And I know plenty of vendors that have it and can get it for me, an amp, say $70. And so I think the key benefit of this, listening to an audio system like this, is that you hear, especially older recordings, exactly the way the band and the audio engineers wanted you to hear them. When they were mastering this stuff in the 60s and 70s, they were mastering it to be played back on the kind of equipment that I offer, not on modern equipment, which is very different and is designed perhaps to be louder or more pleasing to the ear, but not faithful in its reproduction of the sound. And it's sustainable. If you buy a modern amplifier, you're buying something that's very hard to repair, that uses proprietary components and will enter the e-waste chain in 5 to 10 years. And because of the power requirements of a modern amplifier, contains a lot of chemicals that you don't really want entering the environment. Now, vintage amplifiers contain that kind of stuff too, but if you're getting it from me, it's already made it 40 to 30 years, and it will probably never be thrown away. Further, you have superb build quality and industrial design. I'm sure you saw the amplifier that I included a little earlier in the presentation, the silver face, the wood case. This was stuff that was built to last. They weigh 20 to 30 pounds. They're incredibly well engineered. The switches are weighted so that when you spin them, they have a little bit of feedback. So my business goals are pretty straightforward. I want to increase social media engagement so that when people Google me, they see more than my website. They see good reviews on Google and Yelp and etc. I want to grow the company, and I want to work with carpenters and electricians so that I can do truly custom installations. Currently, all my installations have to be freestanding, so just set up next to a bookshelf with the amplifier on levels, and then the turntable and the other components, and then the speakers freestanding. And in the really high-end space, people want their speakers, for instance, in the wall. I can't do that because I'm not going to cut into, I don't have the expertise to cut into people's walls, and I'm not going to pretend to have it and then ruin somebody's house. So eventually, I want to purchase a dedicated vehicle. Because of the size of some of this equipment, it is really helpful to have a truck or van. And in the long run, staff in an office. I could do at most probably 2 installations a day. So if this really scales, I will need more technicians to actually install the equipment. That's everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Expert panelists, take it away.
Fantastic presentation. You obviously, you know your stuff, and getting started at this age is awesome. My one question for your particular business is it's a bit of a niche market. So I want to know about your process and the homework and the information that you've gathered to determine that within your market area, I'm guessing it's Kansas City Metro, that there are enough human beings willing to pay enough money to support you, the truck, and then the staff.
Well, I think everybody cares about audio. This is a culture that's obsessed with music, and in many ways, this equipment speaks for itself. When you hear this, you want it. So if I can get it in front of people, I know that there will be a market for it. Now, in the Kansas City metro area, are there enough people to support a multi-million-dollar business? Probably not. You'd have to go to New York or Los Angeles for that. However, this is the only company in Kansas City that does only this. And there are several other companies that do this as a side business that are relatively successful doing it. There's a company in Overland Park that's a record store, and then they also have an audio equipment refurbishment center that will install that into people's homes, and they have a waiting list. And then you have the high-end AV arena, where it's almost all new equipment. All those companies are constantly getting business. And that's somewhere that I can really come in, because you have people that want, say, a high-end home theater or high-end listening room, that then when they see the price tag, just decide that something like that will never be attainable. Well, you can get the same level of quality at about 1/10 the cost buying vintage equipment. And so if I can target that market especially, I can have people who will buy whole systems costing $5,000, $6,000, $10,000, turntable, various sources, large speakers, high-quality amp, and will still be coming out way ahead than if they went to, say, Magnolia at Best Buy and tried to have that done.
Marketing strategy for bringing greater exposure to your business?
Well, right now we have digital ads, and we're going to expand that. And then also, in many ways, just in-person networking. A lot of the people that want this kind of gear are a little older than me, but sort of in this demographic, actually, people that are business owners or entrepreneurs that have the income to do this and care about quality and good, sustainable experiences that aren't just blind consumers. So it's part of the reason I'm here. And then digital advertising needs to grow. I need more of a budget for that. And like I said during the presentation, I need to have better online feedback. Where I don't have any negative reviews. I just don't have enough good ones.
What's your price point, your average price point for your services?
Probably right around $1,000. That would get you a decent two-source. That's sort of how I sort it, how many sources you want, because I do have people that want a turntable and a cassette deck and a reel-to-reel player and a Bluetooth source, basically everything, and a switcher box to connect them all. And I'm happy to do that, but that starts to get very expensive. Most people are happy basically with something to just play their records and then listen to, say, their phone or computer. And that would be right around $1,000 to do it well.
What's your annual sales?
Annual sales right now, I have about 3 or 4 clients, and so I've done about $4,000. It's a small, it's in its early stages. I started about 6 months ago, and because it's niche, it's hard to find people that are interested in it. But I do think I need a few people out there who are very satisfied, and all my customers so far have been, who will then spread the word, because really, if I put you in a room with this equipment, it would be probably the best audio experience you've ever had. So it sells itself. If I had a showroom, I don't, so I need to I have to convince people, and I hope I'm doing that right now.
So you're talking about you're sourcing. You're basically sourcing a thing that has been constructed and there is a very limited supply. So say, you get to the point you're very successful, there's just not enough supply, or because you're so successful, that supply now becomes prohibitive, it becomes too expensive. What's your plan B? Is there another option that you can, source equivalent material that is manufactured new, or other sources that you can buy, basically the product that you're selling?
There are a few manufacturers that make the kind of equipment that I want new, and they're a little bit more expensive than the used market. Well, they're considerably more expensive. And there's a larger backlog of this gear than you'd think. Really, it's only been about 3 years since people really started to get into this, and the collectors went for the extremely high-end stuff. But there's middle-of-the-road stuff that might not appeal to a master audiophile with a degree in electrical engineering, but is extremely valuable to the average consumer. And it's going to be a long time before all that gets bought up, because you have to think that basically every middle-class household in the US owned at least some of this equipment 30 to 40 years ago. And it's not the kind of thing people really threw away, because it was expensive. So even when they stopped using it, they shoved it in a closet or in their attic.
I think the last point that I'd make on your website, the only piece of advice that I give on your offering, the very first sentence says something to the effect of, my services are limited. And that's perfectly fine to have somewhere. I wouldn't lead with that. I would lead with, this is what I do, and I do it awesomely.
Mm-hmm. I just didn't want people contacting me about, like, hey, can you knock a hole through this wall and mount a speaker? And it's like, no. I will knock your house down if I try that.
All right, we're going to open it up to audience questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll come around with mics. And Kyle actually has our first question.
Thank you for your presentation. You're figuring out your core business model, and that's awesome. That is what you should be doing. My question is a little bit far afield. I'm curious where what you do intersects with the rise of smart speakers. Is there a way for you to ride that wave as people get more and more Alexas, et cetera, into their houses?
Yes, and I've addressed that a little bit, but smart speakers can be integrated with this sort of audio system. Because if you look at like Sonos, they have the Sonos Bridge that will connect directly to an amplifier of virtually any age because it uses the standard RCA outputs, and then that can be controlled through a smart speaker. You can also connect a smart speaker directly to an amplifier, but that is something I would discourage because then you're relying on the digital analog converter circuitry in the smart speaker, which is basically an afterthought. But it's easy to do. It's not cheap, because the Sonos Bridge is a little dear. I think it's $300 or $400, but it's very doable. And then a Bluetooth connection, which basically gives you sort of a bootstrapped smart speaker. You just control it with your phone, $100.
Austin.
I have a quick follow-up question. Sorry, Neil. To keep going with this, so how are people buying smart speakers right now? So I know, like, I have an Alexa, and I just have the little Echo thing, and already I'm thinking, like, gosh, I wish this could hear me better and stuff. So where do you hop into the smart speaker customer journey to let people know, like, off the bat, like, this can work better if you take advantage of what I can do? And is that even interesting to you?
It is, and I can't help your smart speaker hear you better. Don't sell microphones. But I can connect your smart speaker to your central listening room, wherever that is. That might be your living room, that might be a dedicated room in your house, and have it be controlled by that. And it's completely seamless. That's what really impressed me when I first got into this, is I was able to buy a little box for $200, and I could hook up this 40-year-old thing seamlessly to my computer. And it didn't freak out. We're so used to technology not being interoperable, something that's 5 years older than something else going, but because it's all an analog signal and that hasn't changed forever, it's basic math and science, as long as you can create an analog signal using a digital to analog converter, which is extremely well understood technology, you can feed any digital source into these amplifiers. TV, like I said, Bluetooth, smart speakers, et cetera. And there's already a pretty well-developed suite of technologies for connecting smart speakers to amplifiers. And usually those are newer amps. But I can take advantage of the exact same technology because amp technology doesn't move that fast. The connections are the exact same.
Austin over here.
Yeah.
I think you've got a great idea, Austin. I understand this market real well. I used to sell that same Marantz receiver that you showed up there at a place called Stereoland in the Detroit area where I grew up back in the 60s and 70s. So it rings with me. But for most younger people today, you know, they're all digital. I don't think they are going to make a distinction here, you know, between audiophile and just something they can get on the internet or, you know, through Apple. But my question is, there's a big rise today in LPs, in records, and that's basically one of your sources, isn't it? Two sources. You got the radio, and it picks up radio stations. It's not digital in the receiver amplifier, and the phono, right?
Yes, although when I say two sources, I don't necessarily mean the sources that are the amplifier is naturally able to read. That could include piping like a Bluetooth source in through the phono's auxiliary connection.
Yeah.
Or not the phono, the amp's auxiliary connection.
Your interoperability that
Yes.
you were just talking about. Yeah, I get that. But there's this big rise today in interest, and I've seen at Barnes and Noble they've got record players for sale. They're probably cheap, and they plug into a digital amp. But is there any way you can ride that wave
Well, I
in
think
your business?
to an extent, this is dependent on that. That had to happen for this to happen. People had to. The return to vinyl sort of proves that people do care about analog audio, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be listening to vinyl. It's sort of a fashion accessory, but I think we've all met people that are actually into it for its own sake, not just to have LPs to mount on their wall or use on Instagram. So people are starting to care more and more about it. And if you look at the interest and prices in vintage amplifiers and vintage audio components over the last 5 years, they've gone from virtually worthless to $100, $500, and they will keep going up. And so just through simple economics, there's clearly interest. And I think young people are part of that interest, because if you look at, there are companies today, say in the automotive space, that are making very simple but very well-made cars, like a manual transmission, naturally aspirated engine, that are targeted toward not necessarily millennials, because they don't have the money, but people in their mid-30s, that sort of thing, where they want to go back to, it works really well and it's incredibly well-made and it's just simple and it's an involved experience. It's not full of distractions. And I think if I can get that same sort of interest in listening to listen to audio, not music as background noise, not music as something you listen to in your car, I think that's very attractive. And also, ultimately, again, it sounds so much better than anything most consumers have ever experienced, that take away all sort of the clutter around it about it being a trend or it being fashionable or whatever. It's objectively superior. So I'm lucky in that I have stuff where I don't have to start from a position of weakness and go, well, this is terrible, but it's cheap. I'm like, this is excellent and it's cheap, relatively. That's a great sales position.
Austin, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, like how you came to come up with Vintage Audio Consulting? Like, what about that industry interested you? Can you just talk a little bit about how you came to be?
Sure. So my background isn't in audio. I have a bachelor's of science in finance. But it's all started about 2 years ago. My dad ordered a vintage amplifier like the one he had in college and had to sell when I was born. And it shows up and he's away on business, so I unpack it and I hook it up to some speakers that I'm used to sounding just horrible, just to test it, right? Did the guy on eBay sell his working amp? And it sounds amazing. Like the speakers that usually sound like it's basically slightly above an iPhone with the volume turned all the way up sound amazing. It's like something has changed, and it's not these speakers, it's what's driving them. And the obvious answer to that is, oh, well, it's more powerful, right? The amp was more powerful than whatever you had connected to that before. But those speakers have been connected to sort of a consumer-grade amp from the 90s for a long time that had the same wattage. So there's more to it than that. The build quality of the amp and the path the sound and the electrical signals follow, that does make a big difference. And so I sort of had this epiphany where like, this is great. And so I bought one to take to college, and I had to sort of learn how they worked. And that's when my dad just used analog sources. I had to figure out for myself. It's like, I want to connect this to my computer because I own almost no physical media. And that's when I got into, this is surprisingly straightforward. Most people assume that if you have this, it's just sort of a paperweight, unless you have a record collection. It's like you can own no physical media and hook this up to a digital analog converter and have an amazing sound experience. I think my whole system cost me maybe $400. And it sounds way better. It sounds a heck of a lot better than like an $800 Sonos wireless speaker, that's for sure, which isn't even stereo because you only get one of them.
So there's another component that you've alluded to, and that's the education of the marketplace. That there are people who will be interested in this if only they knew. And I'm very familiar with the food marketplace, and the same thing happened there. 20 years ago, kind of started this. People started becoming more interested in not just consuming calories, but actually eating food. What do you see as your role in the edge? Because right now you're relying on folks that already know. They're already interested. They've got some education here. How do you see your role as a educated person in this field and as a company in developing just the knowledge base?
Well, sort of at the most basic level, I've developed some advertising material, images and copy that are targeted toward people that, say, have a vinyl collection, but know nothing about it other than that it's vinyl and that it's cute. Where I basically explain, hey, look, you've spent this money on your vinyl, and if you're listening to it with an off-the-shelf turntable through headphones, you are completely failing it. You are doing a horrible disservice to the audio engineers and the bands and everybody that worked so hard to make this sound great, because it's like listening to it through like a conch shell. It's like, no. So I think that's a great place to start. You have people that they care about audio because they wouldn't have bought this stuff otherwise. But they know not what they do, right? They don't know that they're listening to it in about the worst way that you can listen to something like that. And so I think that's a good entry point. I think people that just listen to top 40 stuff on their phone, I'm never going to capture. But there's a whole middle ground there of people that care about music and care about audio, but don't really know that they're not using it to actually getting the most out of their recordings. And they're willing to, obviously, because part of the argument against this is that it's hassle, right? You have this big, I could listen to this off of an Alexa, but I got to put this 30-pound thing in my house. It's like, well, if you're toting a record player around, you accepted hassle. So now it's just how much hassle do you want and how much do you want to spend? And is it worth it? And it usually is. Because I think, the reason people buy vinyl is because it's one step closer to that actual 10-inch mastering tape that the Beatles made when they made Abbey Road, or that Led Zeppelin made. Right, it's closer to that sacred source. And if you're listening to the thing that's only a few steps removed from that sacred source on the equipment that it was designed to be heard on when that record was cut, you're about as close as you can get, and I think that's very compelling.
I love what you just said there, and if I missed it, I apologize, but I would love, that should be like a blog, the sacred source on your website. That's another piece that you've got immediate control over, and then that could be something else that's being distributed, whatever platform you want to distribute in. But what you said was awesome, great value proposition there. So I just send it out there.
All right, we have one final question. I'm over here, sorry. What can we as a community do to help you?
I think Kansas City's entrepreneurship community is already doing a lot. The fact that this exists is amazing. At a really base level, you can buy my products. But more than that, I think just keep doing what you're doing and provide resources to people like me. And that's sort of, that's sort of it. I can't come up here and say like, I'll give you all a deal. And we're sort of spoiled for choice in Kansas City because we have the Kauffman Foundation and organizations like it that are dedicated to this. The idea that I could get this audience just by setting up an account on the Kauffman website was amazing, and asking. So thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. Let's give Austin a round.
Thank you, Austin. We're going to get switched over to the next presenter. I see a lot of new faces here. If you're not aware, you can apply to present if you have a business. So please go to 1millioncups.com/Kansas City. Apply to present. We would love to hear about your business. We do have a quick announcement from Kyle. Kyle, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming. I wanted to let you know about a pitch day that's coming up. So on March 30th, the Kansas City University Venture Fund will be having a pitch day. They'll be investing in local companies and cutting checks from $15K to $100K. Kansas City University Venture Fund is a group of university students, a program put together by Royal Street Ventures and the Kauffman Foundation. They're learning about being investors by being investors. So if you have a company and are looking for some seed funding, we'll tweet it out. So go to 1 Million Cups KC and find that tweet. And also you can just sign up to get our announcements in your inbox by going to our website, 1millioncups.com/Kansas City, and following the program. That will put all of our community announcements in your inbox. Thanks.
Thank you, Kyle. And it's time for Mug Club. If you've been to 1 Million Cups at least 10 times, raise your hand. If you do not have a mug, keep your hand up.
All right, you're
Nicole
the
found one.
closest person to me, so you win. If you could just give us your name and why you go to 1 Million Cups, that would be great.
My name is Sherry Keel, and I'm Austin's mom. So, of course, I'm here.
That's a pretty good reason. Well, thank you very much for coming.
All right, and without further ado, we're going to get to our second presenter. So please, everyone, give a warm welcome for Comfy Cup.
Okay, hello. Hi, everybody. Is that working? Okay. So as co-CEOs of the Comfy Cup, Kyler and I wear lots of hats to manage this business, but we certainly couldn't do it alone.
Yes. So my dad is the chief investor, and then my sister is the chief order filler because I have to leave to go to catch the bus at 7 a.m.
She does a good job. So we wanted to start our presentation today with a slideshow to kind of give you our story.
Well, as the boys made the transition from machine pitch to kid pitch, one of the requirements that we as coaches decided on was that all kids would have to wear cups in order to have protection.
Normal cups are hard and uncomfortable, and they just feel like something's poking into you. I hated wearing a cup for baseball.
This was a problem because every night when it was time for practice or time for a game, it would be a 30-minute, basically a temper tantrum, trying to get Kyler to put his baseball equipment on.
It became evident really quick as we made that transition that kids at that age found them very uncomfortable, and most of the kids either complained about them the whole time, or as we found out later, most of the kids decided they didn't want to wear the cup at all. So it was around that time that Kyler was also complaining about the way his hard cup felt, and being a parent, I told him that he either had to wear it or he had to come up with a better solution.
I told my mom I had an idea for a softer, more comfortable cup.
He came to me and said, "Mom, I have an idea. You know, I want to make a cup that's comfy for kids, and I want it to be soft and movable." And his first thought was to make it like a bean bag.
My mom got out her sewing kit and tried to make the Comfy Cup how I wanted it. We made several different versions.
So he had a couple different prototypes that we tried out. Ultimately, we found out that his original prototype wasn't the most efficient, and then we had the version that we're currently using that we found was very flexible, had a foam that was bendable and moved as he moved and was much more comfortable, yet still provided protection when getting hit by the ball at the speed that these kids are playing at. And we've done test pilots with other kids, and the feedback has been remarkable. And most importantly, kids that may have not worn a cup are now choosing to wear it.
It feels really comfy and feels a lot better than normal cups.
You know, his invention has changed quite a bit for a lot of the kids who would never have worn one in the past.
It's the best cup I have, I think, because it's really comfy and bendable and protects the balls really well.
Kyler has been the brains and the leader really through all of this. All of the decisions have been Kyler's, and we've just been here to support him and kind of connect him with the people and resources that he needs to help make his dream a reality.
Like I said, it is protective, yet it's comfortable and it will not slide around. It will improve baseball by making the kids focus on the game, not the gear.
So Kyler came up with this idea when he was 8 years old, and 2 years ago we decided as a family that we were going to invest our time and our savings, including $1,000 of Kyler's savings account, to engage in a real-world learning opportunity where our whole family could learn about starting a business and making a difference in the world.
About the sport. Yeah. We learned about the sport athletic cup industry, which is an industry that is slowly growing about 1% each year. In this industry, the Comfy Cup falls into a category of protective equipment other than helmets, which makes up 35% of the market share.
We've also learned a lot about testicular injuries, something I didn't think I'd learn as a mother, but it's interesting to note that 1 in 5 boys will actually experience a testicular injury while they're playing sports, but really only about 1 in 10 kids is wearing protective equipment while they're playing their sport. Protective athletic cup, sorry.
I invented the Comfy Cup for kids just like me who hated wearing the card cup.
We know that these kids aren't the ones that are going out and buying the cup. We know it's their coaches and their parents who believe in the value of protecting their kids and teaching them that healthy habit of wearing protective equipment.
The Comfy Cup has great reviews. Most kids who have tried the Comfy Cup love it.
So when we got our first 1,000 Comfy Cups, I remember looking at them in our garage thinking, how are we ever going to sell all these? And I'm happy to say that we actually have sold 6,000 in our first 18 months.
It's been really fun tracking where the orders come from. I'm happy to say we've sold the Comfy Cup in all 50 United States.
So our growth, this is kind of a tricky slide because we couldn't really compare year to year since we've only been in business for 18 months. So what we've done is we've compared our most recent 6 months of sales with the same time last year, and we see 32% growth. But you know, our big season is baseball season, and that's just starting. So we anticipate that that growth will continue over the next 6 months.
The Comfy Cup supports a lot of young boys, but right now we'd like to recognize some of the people who have supported the Comfy Cup.
So in our learning opportunity, we've had some great experiences and been able to interact with some awesome businesses, and we've really had some cool learning opportunities, haven't we?
I've gotten to be on the news and gotten to be on some podcasts, which were really fun.
So next steps for the Comfy Cup, you know, this started out as just kind of a family side hustle, and now we're starting to see that Comfy Cup could actually be a sustainable, growing business. We know that we can expand in many ways. The first one, our customers are asking for different sizes. Right now we just have one size for 7 to 11-year-olds, but we see a potential to market to younger kids, and then also to older kids. They want a Comfy Cup that they can grow into. And then also, right now when folks buy the Comfy Cup, they have to buy compression shorts from another company to house the protective cup in. And so we'd like to create some athletic shorts that are specifically for the Comfy Cup that our customers can purchase directly from us. And finally, we want to expand our brand awareness.
I want kids all over the world to know they don't have to wear the hard athletic cup, that they can wear the Comfy Cup.
And that's all. Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to turn it over to our experts. Take it away.
I am so very impressed with you and your business model and what you have created. Having just recently seen Little Moguls at a conference just recently, and one ending up being on Good Morning America, whose products are now in Sephora. There's great potential for what you have. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure that the product is just for 7 to 11-year-olds. And is there a thought process to offering this to the adult market as well?
So we've looked into that. We need to do some more testing to offer to the adult market. For the 7 to 11-year-old, we know that the force of impact that they're experiencing, especially in baseball, isn't as big as maybe an adult would. And so that's part of, we're going to need some additional funding to support the testing that would need to be done to support a product for adults.
And I shared with you earlier, sometimes you just need a spokesperson in the sports industry that will move your product further. And that would probably be a very good thing to align yourself with the sports athletic departments and finding a voice that can align itself with you and help to move your product, not just in Kansas City, but around the globe. And there's millions of kids that are involved in athletics, and not just baseball, but all different forms of athletics that my desire for you is to find that one person that will be that voice for your company that'll help to move it further along. You have a great product and a great concept, and you already have a strategy in place. And so now you just need the right people. Yes.
Yeah, ditto. Awesome. Like the young boy in me is just like kind of like, oh, if only I could have, come up with an awesome idea and just taken the initiative. You've done it. So like, bravo, man. Tell me a little bit about the manufacturing process. I'm assuming you're not making these, it's not the sewn model, you're not handcrafting all the comfy cups. How is that working right now, and what are your plans moving forward with the product, with making it, and then also distributing it as you get more and more orders?
So I know we're like making it from China because when we started out, we had some family associations with like a company that created like products. So I know that's how we created it, but I don't know what we're
growing from there. So yeah, Kyler's right now. It's manufactured overseas, and we did that just because we had a connection. That's who we knew. We do have the potential to create more, and actually this company who's helping us manufacture can also help us. We're actually already in the process of creating the athletic shorts and the bigger size cups, so we're in the prototype development for those right now. But it costs money to start, and so we are making money on the Comfy Cup, but is it enough to launch all of these ideas at once? I don't know. I don't think so.
That makes perfect sense. The other side of that, is there anything on the product side itself that is intellectually protected? And if not, how are you then developing a brand and protecting that?
Okay, so we did consult with an attorney about getting a patent for the Comfy Cup, and when we were starting out as a young family, and this was our savings, it was very expensive. And actually, the attorney we spoke with kind of said, even if you do patent this, it will be very hard to defend it. And so we did not patent it. And actually, someone has copied it. They're on Amazon right now. And their reviews aren't as great. So we're hoping that continues. That and it's a bigger product. They've gone and made the bigger size. So it's not protected, and that's something that we have learned. But we do feel like they don't have the story that we do. And so we're hoping that can continue to carry our brand.
Investors want a protected product. And so that is something that would be a hindrance for you to establish the level of partnership you would need. So that would be, and I apologize that you were given incorrect information from an attorney, but you always must protect your intellectual property and your proprietary rights to the process and the product that you create, and you can always defend what you developed. Aggressively defend what you create and develop, because they're taking part of your market share. They're actually robbing from you. And I would highly recommend competing in whatever competitions you can compete in for investor dollars to get these things taken care of so that you can go on a global scale with your product. I wouldn't recommend going outside of the market you're in now unprotected, because there are so many people who have the capacity to create your product overnight and would squeeze you out of your own market. So be very careful to get yourself properly protected so that when you grow, you're growing protected as well.
All right, we're gonna turn it over to audience questions. Please get your hands up. All right, we've got one. Kyle, you gonna start?
We'll start with a question here in the center.
Awesome. Hey, great job. Great presentation, guys. Really excited about that. Played sports growing up, and I needed that a lot. Quick question. I love that you guys are using it in baseball. Is it also being applied in soccer?
We know that we have some friends who play soccer, and we've asked them. We find a lot of the soccer players don't want to wear Athletic Cup. We feel like our next biggest market is actually martial arts, and then followed by that would be lacrosse. Those have been like our customer feedback as far as those are the sports they're playing, but we see opportunities for hockey, we see opportunities for football, and I know some of the kids that Kyler's friends with play football and wear one.
Got a question over here on your right.
Nice job to both of you guys. Kyler, question for you. What advice do you have for kids and quite frankly for adults that want to start a business? I know you had a tough investor to convince, which I don't think you convinced him initially, but what advice do you have for people out there that want to start a business?
If you want to start a business, the thing is, like, you really just want to believe in yourself and just like keep trying, like prove that you can be right.
Right.
Question in the back center.
Yeah, let me echo everyone else's kudos. It sounds to me like this started as a family operation around a kitchen table, and perhaps you brought some friends into it. What's your management structure look like now? Is somebody doing this full time? Is this still, we fit it in the evenings when we can? Talk a little bit about that, please.
I'll answer that one. So really, I am doing a lot of the work, doing the social media, helping fill the orders, doing the accounting, all of that. But we're at a place now, I'm an occupational therapist on the side. So it has been a part-time gig. So I feel like if we're going to continue to grow, we need to look at adding more people to our team to support us. I think we're really feeling that right now. Like, okay, we can still fill the orders, and actually we have fun doing that as a family. We have a map in our home office where the kids keep track of where all the orders are coming from, and so there's still some great learning opportunities, but we need help. There are certain things that we can't learn on YouTube, and we can't keep asking our friends to help us with. So we're at that period where it's time to grow.
We got a question in the center.
Kind of answered some of that. I was curious. I was looking at your Twitter feed, and I see it looks like you've got some original content on your website, like blogs and things like that. So that's great. But I was kind of wondering about what's the next step for expansion for you guys. Like, how are you guys going to really get out there now that you've kind of hit your low-hanging fruit with people that'll just find you on Amazon? How are you really going to get out there and network and introduce your product to people and get more and more people to become familiar with your product and like break into the martial arts arena and things like that?
Okay. That is a great question, and that is something we are asking ourselves. Like I said, I'm a therapist. I don't know anything about content marketing and advertising, and so we've dabbled in AdWords and Facebook ads and Instagram ads and things like that, but we're kind of flying blind, and so that is an area that we feel like, okay, we need help. We don't really have a strategy or a plan, and so we need someone to help us who knows what they're doing, and we can use the money that we have in a good way to grow our business.
Kyler, thank you so much for presenting. You are absolutely a rock star. I actually have a very specific memory of my first day of 7th grade football practice where I had a hard cup in. And what I did when I encountered my hard cup was go to the bathroom and throw it in the trash can. But you started a business. So you're awesome. I hope, yeah, let's do that. So I hope you know that we are all on your team. We're all rooting for you. You're going to be a huge success. So all of our questions about have you thought about, are you scared about, is because we want you to succeed. So here's my have you thought about, are you scared about thing. And maybe this question is a little bit more for Mom. In marketing, how do you thread the needle about talking about youth's balls? Yeah, that question.
Well, our family is really open, and so sometimes we have to ask other people, and actually, Randy's, I maybe am the one who's a little questionable at times. And we may have offended someone. We may have offended someone today with the back of our t-shirts, but did you show? 2 balls are better than 2 strikes. But I don't know. And that, you know, we kind of just follow our hearts and what we think is funny or what we think is an attention-grabbing statement, you know. It's a fact of life. Everybody, guys have them, and it's important to protect them. And I feel like, gosh, there's a lot of media about protecting your head and helmets and concussions and things. And I really see this as maybe the next market. You know, we've got to protect the family jewels too. So there I go, crossing the line.
Another question up front.
And I think too, you make a good point. I think every guy here who's ever played sports like has that story. That could be an interesting, you know, social media thread. Or have you connected with any of the other resources here in Kansas City? I know that there's inventors groups that have been there and done that. I know that there are mentors that exist that are here today, that are all through here, that, you know, their whole, like what they are here to do is help you through that process. And I know that there's folks that are familiar with, you know, a consumer product and online sales. Have you connected with any of those resources yet, or do you utilize any of them currently?
We've connected with the Small Business Development Center at Johnson County Community College. Jack Carwell's been great and been a great resource for us. I feel like we haven't found someone who really knows, like, we're selling on Amazon and we're selling on a website and we know how to support you. That is something that we're looking for. We're looking for someone who's been there, done that on the internet and knows how to guide us in those business decisions. So Jack has been great, and he's even helped us some with this presentation. So, but we're always looking for more helpers.
And then my other question, so one thing, your website does a great job of answering, you know, a lot of the questions. When I first encountered the company, I'm like, I wonder about this, this, and this. And you're like, bing, bang, bang, you got it all, you know, listed out. One thing that I thought was interesting is you have a specific point in your website where you specifically say this is not for female use. Do you have enough questions about that is potentially something that is another market opportunity?
I hadn't ever thought of it as a market opportunity, but we have had some returns because it didn't fit their daughter. So that is a potential market that I didn't think about it until right now. Thank you.
Question way in the back for you.
You have a really great brand story, but it sounds like you have a couple of thousands of sales right now, and you're manufacturing overseas. Going back to protecting your intellectual property, I've worked with other Americans that have $50,000 wrapped up in lawyer fees trying to patent, but as soon as you bring that over to overseas, especially with a low volume, you know, once they have that idea and they're no longer getting the sales volumes, they're going to go ahead and take it and produce themselves. So you have a great brand story. I would say stick with it. Actually, have you thought about Kickstarter or Indiegogo so that when you do have $100,000 in sales, that you can go to a manufacturer and produce and start with a brand, and people can be loyal to your brand story, not just a product? So Indiegogo or Kickstarter to get that $100,000 sale and then explore overseas.
Yeah, that's something that we initially considered. And then, to be honest, we just realized, gosh, we could kickstart it ourselves. But I do see the potential for gaining customers and following through Kickstarter, Indiegogo too, and to boost our sales. And we're getting pretty close. I think last year, we're getting close to $100,000 in sales last year. So.
I forgot to ask you earlier, what is the cost to produce your product?
I'm pretty sure the cost is around $3.
$3 to produce, and what are you selling it for?
Selling it for $12.99.
Great margins. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Last question. What can we as a community do to help you guys?
You never ask. So like we said, what you can do is tell all the young boys and their parents that you know about the Comfy Cup. Also, like I said, we need help connecting with resources for marketing, advertising, business-to-business relationships. And then last, just get inspired.
If I can do it, you can do it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Awesome. Wonderful job. Thank you guys so much for coming out. Before I close, I want to take a moment to acknowledge our caffeinators. If you are a caffeinator, please stand up. Oh, we only got one in the room right now? We got two. All right. Find these guys, talk to them. They are great resources to have. That's why we brought them on. Next week, we have Draft Pack and City Smart. Please join us. We will be very excited to see you. Have a wonderful week.